Well, good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
And here we are again. And we're going to continue our study this morning as we're getting down towards the end. You're all wondering, are we going to hit 200? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not sure yet. So we're going to continue on this morning with one man's journey. And we're down in chapter 49, verse 33, and I marked it A. We could possibly call it B, but we're in the middle phrase of that verse, one phrase. Jacob drew his feet into his bed and breathed his last. That's what we're talking about, the actual point of death of this patriarch. So that's what we opened up with last week. And as Steve has already mentioned, the course I took was to use several. First, I created an outline of which I don't have the slide, but it was more of a flow of the thought of verse 33a, this whole idea of death. And I'm quoting several sections out of the book by Ernest Becker, who won a Pulitzer Prize for this book in 1972 or 73, and called The Denial of Death. And the flow that I'm working from is that there is a state of mankind which is this impending death that we all are to participate in at some point. And that creates a struggle within us, and that's what this book is about, is that our natural default nature, our natural default mode as human beings is to deny this reality of death. And then what that does is then it creates action. We act in regard to this reality in certain ways, and so I talked about that last week. And then finally, how as we as believers to look at this. Of course, we all understand the resurrection, or at least we all acknowledge the resurrection, but it creates opportunity for us, and that's the discussion that we're in. Well, I picked one quote that I'll review from last week under the opportunity we have as having faith in Christ in regard to this reality of death. I think that and this is Ernest Becker's quote, he says that, I think that taking life seriously means something such as this, that whatever man does on this planet has to be done in the lived truth of the terror of creation, of the grotesque, of the rumble of panic underneath everything. Otherwise, it is false. Whatever is achieved must be achieved with the full exercise of passion, of vision, of pain, of fear, and of sorrow. How do we know that our part of the meaning of the universe might not be a rhythm in sorrow? That doesn't bring comfort to all of us. To live fully is to live with an awareness of the rumble of terror that underlies everything. Now, I understand, guys, that this is making some of you uncomfortable, that we need to focus in on the resurrection. But if you could just bear with me. Yes, I believe in the resurrection. I believe we are not just merely food for the worms, but there is such an innate desire within all human beings, at least from my opinion, of this denial. It dramatically affects how we view things. We want to push it aside. We want to dismiss it. But the point is, in Ernest Becker's book, is as we engage our own mortality, it really frees us to live at an entirely different level. That's where we're at. So we're going to move. We're going to actually move right into a table discussion this morning, picking up where we left off last week. But before we do, the question this morning I'd like you to discuss at your tables is, to what degree have you talked about and or made plans regarding the following? Now, again, we are all facing a death. but yet the reality is, guys, if we're quite honest, is that most of us have not talked about it to the degree that we probably should. And there are 3 ways that I've identified that we can prepare for this reality, this personal reality. Number 1 is create or update your will. This is a good idea. And as we grow older, those details within that will change. So the question I'm having to you guys is, geez, have you created a will? and or is it time to update that will? That's number 1. Number 2 is have you and I established what are called advanced directives. Now these are issues that come up at the very end of death. Number 1 is have I established or appointed a medical power of attorney? Let's say I am incapacitated and can't make my own decisions for my own health. It's really a good idea to state some loved one that can make those decisions for you and to make those decisions. Guys, this is not so much for you as it is an exercise in love for your loved ones. So you've given them some sort of direction. And so medical power of attorney is one, and then the second thing is what's called a living will, and that means at the point of death, how much of heroic measures do I want employed to save me? And that's where that is addressed. Now you're thinking, gee, where in the world do I, how do I do this? Well, we have a great resource within our community, the Aspen Club of Fort Collins. You can Google that, and they offer all types of classes for this type of thing. Sandra and I have attended a class such as this, and they offer them periodically, and they're free. They give you all of the resource. They show you how to actually go through and create your advanced directives. And it's a very sane and very appropriate thing to do, is to create these things. And so there's the second piece, a will generally, and then your advanced directives. And then the last thing on here that is a good idea to do is to do advanced funeral arrangements. Again, I can speak from experience on both sides. As one who has lost loved ones, it's really nice to have all that in place, so you don't have to go through all that, make decisions as siblings. Where are we going to bury mom? And you're giving a wonderful gift to your family by doing this. So again, there is a sense of momentum that has to be overcome in order to do this. But I guarantee you guys, as you start moving down this road, it becomes easier. And it really, these are very practical things that you can do. So at your table, what I'd like you to do, we're picking up from where we left off last week, is to what degree have you talked about or made plans regarding the following? So spend some time at your tables, and then I'll bring us back together for some closing remarks. So have a great time.